Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our June Quest Connect, which we do on the first Sunday of the month at 2 p.m. And it's my pleasure to be here with you today and to be exploring more of the themes and teachings from the Quest program, and inviting you to join in and to spend this time together this afternoon. So while we're waiting for people to sign in, we will do our coming to our senses process and start everything by doing nothing, which is what we like to do here at Quest. And so whenever you join in, I invite you to gently close your eyes or gaze softly, and we'll just bring our attention to the soles of our feet and feel ourselves sitting on our chair. And as we do our coming to our senses process, while people are joining in, welcome everybody. We'll just get present with being here together. So feeling your feet on the floor, feeling your sit bone on your chair, wherever you're sitting. Tuning into the breath, noticing the breath that you're taking, the rise and fall of the chest. Noticing that breath. And then tuning into any sounds that might be in your room, in your environment, either inside the room or outside of the room. And if you've got your eyes gently closed or gazing down, let's tune into the sight behind closed eyes. Sometimes it's lights or different things. You might have your eyes softly open. Breathing in and noticing any aromas that might be present in your space. Any tastes in the mouth. And the touch of clothing on the skin. So we're coming to our senses, coming to those using those five senses to connect us to the present moment, to the body, and to just be aware in this moment of being present, being in the body, and allowing the breath as it goes in and out to send a message to the nervous system that this is a time you're choosing to spend with me, with others, with the Quest family. It's a time where we're going to focus on peace and calm and being present with ourselves in the body. So just as you feel those breaths and take those breaths, inviting the nervous system to relax a bit further, to let go, to sink into your chair more deeply, to feel your feet on the floor, connecting through to the earth, and just to send that message to the nervous system that for this time we're going to be together. It's okay to relax, be still, be thoughtful, be quiet, be present to yourself. So I love to start by acknowledging that I'm living and working on the land of the Gubbi Gubbi people in southeast Queensland, and pay my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and my gratitude for being on this land and feeling that I'm welcome to live here and be here. So it's great to be here with you this afternoon, the beginning of June, full moon last night. And the topic I've chosen to for us to be with today is the fourth C. I think many of you would be familiar with the four C's, the letter C that we talk about at Quest for Life and in Patria's book, Your Life Matters, where she outlines these four qualities that were found by her and other researchers in people who had way better than expected outcomes with a life-threatening diagnosis. It was found that they had, this was not their demographics or personality characteristics, it was qualities of the way they lived their life and things that they prioritized in their life that were identified as being very helpful in seeking that better than expected outcome. And by that we mean they lived longer than expected, they lived better quality than expected, and it didn't necessarily determine the outcome, but it had a huge impact on their experience of what was happening. And so these four C's are really a foundation of the Quest program and what we offer as our education and group exploration in the Quest programs. And the fourth one is the C stands for connection, meaning that people who had these better than expected outcomes had a sense in their lives of a connection. Excuse me, I've got a runny nose today. Had a sense of being connected to other people and or something greater than themselves. And this came to mind very strongly for me this month, because I've just had the very interesting experience of being in Melbourne at a convention, a Rotary International convention, 20,000 people from all over the world meeting together to share, discuss, communicate, celebrate all the efforts from 200 different countries to make a difference, be a force for good, volunteer their time and their efforts to making the world a better place. And I don't know about you, but I haven't been in a gathering, a stadium, Rod Laver Arena, a big stadium full of thousands of people with that intention. I've been to concerts, I've been to things to learn about things, but this had quite a different flavour. People coming to share about what they were doing, what they are doing, what needs doing at a global level, with a focus on peace and a focus on making a difference in the world and world change. And I've never been with a group of people before who outlined the very real problems in the world without a sense of victim or hopelessness or despair, but with an absolute, what can we bring to the table? What can we do that makes a difference? And it was very, very uplifting and opened my eyes wide to many people doing extraordinary things happening in Africa and South America and some of the poorest countries in the world, war-torn countries. These people sharing their stories, sharing what they were doing, how they're networking, how they're volunteering made a difference. And some of them had huge traumas and terrible illnesses and all the things that come with humanity. So quite a remarkable experience of humanity that I felt very blessed to be allowed to be a part of for that time. And I thought, wow, I mean, I often say to my family members when they put the news on, I go, really, do you want to hear all of that about these are the things, that happen in the world that are not so helpful, when there are literally millions of people doing things in the world that are incredibly helpful every day and competent and motivated and what have you, and we simply don't hear about them. So to be in this environment, to be hearing speaker after inspiring speaker, watching videos, seeing things on the ground. One remarkable young woman, 10-year-old from Africa, but she held the rapt attention of the 20,000 people, speaking about the environment and her country and truly remarkable, wonderful things. And I thought, we talk about the connection, and not everybody can or would enjoy getting the opportunity to go to this conference or have this experience, but I felt there was much to be harvested from it in terms of a deeper dive into the effect of connection, because what I noticed was it broadened my horizons, it broadened my perspective on what is possible, how it is possible to be. We all need role models, and one of the greatest ways we learn about how to be different is when we see and hear people that we admire, respect, are inspired by, and we see how they're doing it. We see, well, how do you talk about these problems without going down a rabbit hole of despair or futility? How do you talk about the issues of the world without getting angry and furious, and or without being in denial? And speaker after speaker demonstrated to me how that was done in a very heartfelt and competent way, and I really appreciated being able to see that. I don't think I've really seen that in that same way before. It was a model of, oh, that's what it looks like and sounds like. Really good speakers, coherently, heartwarmingly telling their stories, their plans, their achievements. So we all need this kind of experience and experiment, and this sense of uplift from being with our fellow humans and learning from their life story and being inspired from their life story and sharing parts of our story and connecting. And when I reflected more on that, I thought one of the things I know from my many decades of working with people with PTSD and anxiety and depression, and my many decades of living with my own PTSD, anxiety and depression, is that when we're in fear, or we're in a triggered state, or we're struggling to get through what life is presenting to us, we really lose this perspective of the bigger picture. We can become very focused on our small experience of the world, and I only say small in the reference to it's singular, or it's just us and our family. It's not a bigger perspective. I'm not saying that it's small or insignificant. It's very significant to us when we're in it. But one of the gifts of watching people talk and speak and address life from a bigger perspective is that it reminds us of the way to have a different view, that we're not the only ones who've ever been through this, that we're not the only ones who know anything about this, that we're not the only ones who've been abandoned, traumatized, left, bereft, the many, many things that we've experienced. And that's, what difference does that make that we're not the only ones? Well, we can learn from others in how they can maybe talk about it, how they have approached it, what they have found helpful. So this is not a I shouldn't complain because there's always someone worse off than me, or I shouldn't be present to myself because everybody else is doing better. And that is the difficulty, that the trauma brain will go into comparisons, or why aren't I doing what they're doing, or I should be more like them, or I can't do it as well as they can, which is really obviously not going to help us. But when we can sit together and say, okay, I'm here, I'm doing my best to be present, help myself, or find something that will help me, let me see where I may be able to connect with others in a way that would be helpful to me. Now, the first example I'd love to share about that is the example of coming to a Quest program, because we know that many of you who watch our Facebook Lives have not been to a Quest program. And this is not, of course we'd love you to come, but this is not really about advertising, but it is about describing why that program is so effective. And one of the things is that even people who've been very isolated before they come, pretty much always in the 10 years I've been, over 10 years now, running programs, it's a very rare person who doesn't experience some sense of connection during that week together. And why is that? Not because we harass them or make them share or make them do anything they don't want to do, but it is about they're in a room with other people, they're hearing some of each other's stories, they're having the the trauma brain will sit in a group of people and go, oh, look, they're all more together than me. They're all, you know, or they're not, they don't obviously don't have it anything as bad as I do going on because they look so together. It makes up all these stories about people. And when we go around our circle in Quest and just have a moment of presencing what's brought us through the doors, we really realise that all of us, including the facilitators, are there because of our own journey, and that we're all in this together. Nobody's there because they've got the answers or they want to fix anybody or they're better than anybody. We're all in this together. So that does form a sense of camaraderie and connection. And then we share meals together and we have morning tea together and we relax together and we talk about things together and have different experiences. And so by the end of the week, there is this real sense of connection. And I know that for many people who come to Quest, this is the first sense of that real connection they've had in a very long time, often. And even when they live with family or live with people who care, that sense of connection when we're really hurting, when we're really struggling, when we're really not feeling great, is easily broken. And it's easily broken because many of us don't have the communication skills to let others know how we're feeling, and they don't have the skills to be with us. They get anxious and try and fix us and do things that are not helpful, and many people just shut down. And then, of course, for many of us who come from families with trauma, then we are more likely to find ourselves through our lives in positions where we are isolated, where we don't have people we can easily share with, where we're not living with caring people. We might be living on our own or with people who we don't care. We may not have the kind of friendships and relationships where we really feel connected to others at an emotional level, or we can really share ourselves. And so we might be around people or going to work and doing things, but not feeling connected. So there are many elements to this ability to connect and this experience of connection. And I know that one of the most debilitating things really when people, particularly with PTSD and of course depression and anxiety, really, why would I pick one out? It's all true, that we don't have the energy to connect. Often we don't want to have a conversation. We don't have the energy or the confidence to make new friends. We don't even have the energy to ring old friends. I personally am so grateful for the world of emojis, because I know in my times when I was burnt out and feeling very unable to connect or communicate, the effort to pick up the phone and talk to someone was just too much. Whereas now, if I am having some low moments, I can send a text and I can put a heart on a text. I'm so grateful that you can stay in touch with people without having to talk to them. Now that sounds terrible, but if you've ever been exhausted and depressed, you know what a great thing that is, right? So what I'm saying is there are practical ways to look at this, but it is important to know that the more isolated we become, the biggest problem with that is we really lose our sense of perspective, and we can get very focused on our own inner world. And if that's not a productive or useful place to be, we can go down that rabbit hole where we get in a cycle of fear, in a cycle of negativity, in a cycle of self-hatred, in a cycle of hopelessness and helplessness. And that, of course, doesn't help anybody. Now, the depressed brain, the traumatized brain will tell you, well, you feel like that because that is the way things are. And if you've ever lived through one of those cycles and come out the other side, you know you can look back and go, it really felt that way, but it actually wasn't. I mean, it was a tough time and maybe there weren't people there. I had been abandoned, rejected, terrible things had happened. But from a sense of perspective out the other end, in some cases, I can see that there was more to the picture. But when we're in it, we really can't see that. So this being able to seek out and maintain some sense of connection with ourselves, our more positive self, if you like, or with someone else, is really an important skill to have in our skill set. So I'm bringing this forward today to say we really need to pay attention to this. Now, I've supported many people and had experiences myself of trying to go into the community and connect and having negative or difficult experiences, or even picking up the phone to a family member and having negative or difficult experiences. And it is true that it's not always going to turn out well, and we do need to be selective in that if we think about who we're going to connect with, we want to make sure it's somebody who isn't going to jump on the bandwagon of, oh yes, isn't life awful, oh yes, things are terrible, oh yes, it's all doom and gloom. Like, connecting with other people who are going to reinforce our negativity isn't going to be helpful. We want to connect with people who have a proven ability to acknowledge what's difficult and keep finding moments of joy anyway. And I say moments, like sometimes it's a moment of a cup of tea, it's a moment in the sunshine. But we want to make sure that we're connecting with people who we've seen them, we know that they can do that. Because connecting with people who are very critical, very difficult to be around is not going to help us. So we need to make thoughtful choices about who we might connect with and how we might connect. I mean, we've all learned during COVID that connecting on Zoom is better than we thought it would be. I hope you've found that, and that we could feel connected with people all around the world through a screen. So maybe if we're too sick, too tired, too fed up to get our face on and get out there, we connect online with a group of people who may be meditating or maybe interested in something we're interested in, or have a Facebook group where you just put things that you're interested in, some way to connect with people that won't demand too much from you but will give you input from other people. A client who had a really remarkably supportive experience on a website for people who were grieving and people who'd lost a family member due to suicide, and it was obviously very well monitored, the group, but the sharings were, she would sometimes share some of them with me, and they were beautiful and very meaningful and very supportive to her. So I don't know exactly what that was. This was a few years ago, but I know that those groups exist online, and that sometimes sharing with someone, even if they're on the other side of the world, but they've had your experience and they can express it and talk about it in a way that's useful. That's the criteria that's often missing. Who are those people who can talk about grief, who can talk about anxiety in a way that is meaningful and helpful rather than brings you down or is critical? So speaking of that, that's the other thing I've observed, particularly with PTSD people. Will go into a group or a community setting and are very touchy, very easily put off, very quick to take offence or to be very cautious about, wary of criticism or feeling that they're being made to feel wrong about anything. Now, really we know that that's because people with PTSD feel that they're doing something wrong. They feel that they should be able to get over it, that they shouldn't be feeling this way, that they shouldn't be out of control of what's going on in their brain, many things. Let's just say PTSD is not great for your self-esteem, really isn't. So then their brain becomes hypervigilant about where others might be thinking that about them. Oh, they didn't like me, or they turned away, or they didn't, it can be the slightest thing. They didn't invite me to sit there, or they, moved across the room, talked to somebody else, and so they don't like me, or these kind of thinking. I'm not making this up, you know I'm not, right? So, sorry, I just got one of those distracting notifications that my internet was doing something not great. It seems to be better. I don't never know what they want me to do about it, because I don't think there is anything I can do about it. So when we do decide to connect, and if we do decide we're going to go out there and try to be part of something in the community or show up, it is important that we may remind ourselves that, you know, other people are just being themselves, and a lot of people aren't sensitive or aren't aware of people in the room or do things that are thoughtless. People do. And so it is important that we support ourselves to be able to go into the community, and particularly when we're feeling raw or we're feeling fragile, and, you know, give it some space, give ourselves some space to be there, to notice if we're getting very reactive and triggered. Notice often with PTSD we get angry and we want to, you know, be critical of people. And one of the things I've noticed in the thinking that can happen is people are very quick to go, oh, that was good, that was bad, that was good, I didn't like that, that was bad. That we're evaluating everything all the time. And some of us have been taught to think that way about ourselves and life. Oh, I just did that, that was good. I just did that, that was bad. I just did that, that was good. They said that, that was bad. And it's not a very helpful way to keep dividing life up into between the good and bad experiences. And it is, if we can step back and go, you know, finding that connection is really about my ability to stay connected to my own breath, to my own heartbeat, and go, I'm here because I want to be connected. But if I'm not enjoying it, or I'm not feeling that these are the people I want to connect to, I'm free to leave, or I'm free to, but I don't have to judge everything as good or bad or not okay, or I don't have to make a judgment about it or dislike everybody or get angry with everybody. I can just honour the fact that people are here for connection, and this isn't working for me right now, so I'll back away and maybe I'll try something else, or maybe I won't. But seeking out a sense of connection is something that, if we feel well enough, it can be a really important step to take. And, you know, I do say this because I know that if we can invite people to come into the Quest environment and do one of our live-in programs, we know that exponentially has such a great impact, because most of the magic happens between the participants, and the magic of them connecting with each other and finding things in common, and knowing that in this environment it's okay to say what's going on, and that you don't have to pretend to be okay or be positive or be upbeat. So one of the features of the conference I was at was the acknowledgement that to find peace and to come from a place of peace when connecting with others, that peace does start within, internally. And that is certainly one of our big pointers, I'll say, where we want to point people's attention in the Quest program. And, you know, mental health issues of all kinds really are about a lack of inner peace. They're about a turmoil inside. And it often leads to a sense of isolation, because people feel wrong for having it and that they should be happy. So how do we connect in to ourselves, into a more peaceful place within ourselves? And that is a real skill that takes quite a bit of practice. Now, one of the pointers you'll find us at Quest talking about all the time, and I'm pretty sure wherever else you might go online or in the world, you'll find people immediately starting to talk about some form of meditation or quietening the brain down, like we did at the beginning of today, if you were with me, right on the hour, where we know that just tuning into the breath and tuning into ourselves sitting on the chair or whatever is really important. What I know for sure is that all mental health issues really involve a distorted relationship with ourselves. That we feel bad, we get surprised by thoughts and feelings that come up in us, and nobody feels good about having mental health issues. Nobody feels good, obviously, about having depression or anxiety or trauma-based symptoms. And so most of us, I really would say all of us, go into some form of shame or self-blame around that experience. We should be able to be happy, we should be able to be strong, we should be able to survive, we should be a leader for others, whatever. And you will find that really all the efforts of creating peace internally within ourselves are about finding a place in our own thinking and our own feeling where we can have compassion for ourselves. And without a doubt, what we find when people are in turmoil is that they have shame and blame of themselves, or they switch it around and get very shaming and blaming of other people, which of course is the flip side of the coin, and some people do both. And you've heard that story that, if someone's very critical or judgmental, that, we'll have compassion for them because they'll be even harder on themselves in the inside. And that is true, but difficult, because if they're shaming and blaming or being judgmental to you, it's very unpleasant and difficult. And, the other symptom is people are very irritable. And often this has been our parents, hasn't it? I mean, it took me a very long time to understand that my mother's seemingly constant irritability and criticalness, which are very hard to live with as a child because you're in trouble all the time for just doing kid things, and you internalise that as you're doing something wrong. But as I grew and learnt more about trauma and understood more about her life, I realised that this was really just her PTSD, which has never been attended to, and she was her nervous system was in a constantly irritated state, which meant that she was in a constantly irritated state. So as we learn to understand, and we live in a time where there's so much more known about trauma and about effects on the vagus nerve and the symptoms and what to do about it, and breathing and meditation, this is terrific information, so helpful, is we learn that part of the sequencing where we start to really disconnect from ourselves and from others is because we're blaming and shaming ourselves and or others for feeling fearful, feeling bad, feeling anxious. And I like to say anxiety really is a fancy name for fear. It's fear. And how to deal with fear effectively is the probably most important skill for mental health. And how to deal with it is not to rationalize it away or tell yourself you shouldn't have it, but is really to make that switch from a fear-based state to a love-based state, and to find a way into the space of love for life and for our true nature. Now that can be a long journey, there's no doubt about that, but just to give you a pointer, we can't change, fix and get rid of all the things that might make us feel afraid in life. There's just too many possibilities of disaster happening, and if you're someone to whom disaster has already happened on more than one occasion and have had difficult experiences in life, then you've got a brain who's hyper vigilant about that, and I have one of those brains. So which leads ongoingly to constant anxiety and then burnout and depression. There's a whole sequence there. And that happens when people get sick, and that happens when people get shock, and it happens when people are first responders and in war zones, of course, all of that happens. But I do find that the key point when I talk to people about their inner thought system, their inner feeling system, is that they've gone into a state of blaming and shaming themselves for having that reaction, for being in fear, for being afraid, and that the panic attacks then are really the fear of having the fear, and the nervous system blowing that out of control and proportion. And again, the big thing that really helps with that is a sense of connection. So, and we know that from, if you've ever looked after an animal in a thunderstorm, or a child who's been very frightened, we know that it's the connection. It's the touching, it's the soothing, it's the calming, it's the loving, it's the eye contact, it's the presence that calms them down. The feeling is, I'm not alone, I'm not being asked to deal with this by myself. There's somebody here with me, and I'm not wrong for having these feelings. I'm okay, and there's somebody here with me. And when I say I'm okay, not everything's okay. Everything's all right, everything's okay. Doesn't often help when you can see that it isn't. But I'm here with you no matter what. I'm not leaving your side no matter what. That can really, really help. And what I know in my own work internally and with others is that when we learn to be that person with ourselves, which is not everything's going to be okay, I don't know if it is or not. But what I do know is I'm going to stay with myself while it's happening. I'm not going to leave. Now, some of us are thinking of my anxiety. So this sense of connection is really, really key, both internally and externally. But the internally really needs to come first, because otherwise we can be, and I'm sure many of you have had this experience, you can be in a room full of many, many people and feel horribly alone, and feel even worse because you're going, here I am with people who maybe love me, or people who I could join in with or be interested in. I feel nothing, I feel lonely, I feel separate, right? And that is a feeling of disconnection. And so it's so important that we don't blame ourselves. And often, though, what we do as young people is we get scared by that. We think, oh my God, there's really something wrong with me. This certainly happened to me, and I've been with many clients through this process of, there's something wrong with me, I can't feel it, I'm not here. Everyone around me seems to be happy and having a good time. I'm feeling nothing, or I'm feeling awful. And then we go into fear of, there's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough, or all those familiar stories. One of the things I love to do in any room full of people is to ask the question, who here has felt or does often feel not good enough? And pretty much, I'm going to say everybody puts their hand up. This is an example of where connection changes your perspective. Where would you get to ask that question, right? Because from what I hear in the corporate world and other places, people are so busy proving that they're enough, that they're good enough, that that they would never have that opportunity. But I love the moment when I can ask a group, who here feels not good enough? And I go, now keep your hand up and look around the room. And they go, look at that, everybody's hands up. Wow, I thought I was the only one. Disconnection. I thought I was the only one. Pretty much everybody's got some pretty big stories about not being good enough. And if not in all of the areas of their life, certainly in some areas of their life. And you know this, people who are very successful in their career, but their personal relationships are not great, or lovely relationships, but had trouble feeling confident enough to do anything else much in their world, and many variations of that theme. People who say, I can't sing, I can't draw, I can't dance, because some teacher told them to stop expressing themselves, rather than having freedom of a little kid who just does sing and dance and draw because it's fun, right? So these are all how we get disconnected. We didn't want to be disconnected. We didn't want to be in life feeling disconnected. We humans, this has been researched over and over again, we only thrive when we feel connected. We are tribal animals. We are not meant to be loners or lonely. And that includes people on the spectrums and people with different brains. Even though they may not want to talk and they may not interact the same as other people, they definitely do better when they're in an environment around surrounding them where they can be connected. So I guess I'm really bringing this forward today to say, don't neglect this area of your life, because isolation is not good for us, and feeling lonely and hopeless and helpless is not good for us. And I know that it can be, you can go out and have connections with communities and have awful experiences. I've had several of those myself. It's not that there's a great big world out there waiting to receive you necessarily joyously and in a friendly way. That may not always be the case. And there are some places and several places, and all you need is one place or a few places where you can go online, in person, just as an observer, and practice having that sense of connecting with your fellow humans. And to really do that, we do need to come from a place of love. A place of, what do I have to offer when I walk in the door is, I come in peace. I come in love. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to fall in love with everyone in the room, but it's like, I come willing to open my heart. I come willing to not find fault. I come willing to not shame and blame myself or anyone else. So I belong to a singing group which I enjoy, and it's very much the ethos. It's not a choir where you have to be able to sing to join. It's anybody can come and join in with what's going on and be accepted. And so, come with an open heart, saying, I'm willing to let my voice be heard, even if I'm, not necessarily making a sound that I think will be great. And if you're in an environment where people were saying, yeah, we accept your right to come and join in and be part of it, that can be a wonderful thing. So us coming into these experiences with a willingness to be open and a willingness to not be offended. When we get offended, it's because we've taken something personally or we think it's about us. And most times when you look at what people are doing, it's not about anybody other than themselves. So again, if we come in peace, we come with our own sense of, I'm okay, you're okay, in the words of Eric Berne, the famous psychologist. I'm okay, you're okay. We're just trying to be humans here together and go for a walk or volunteer or paint a picture or whatever. I'm not here to judge you. You're not here to judge me. Maybe you do judge me, but so what, right? If I can maintain my own connection with, I'm just here to do whatever this group is about and to be open to connection, then we're not going to get offended. We're not going to get annoyed and triggered by everybody. So this can take a bit of practice and some encouragement. And when we have a lot of trauma and we're feeling bad of ourselves, the place to start is, if I'm going to go out and connect with people, I need to be able to show up believing that I'm okay. Yes, I'm feeling anxious. Yes, I'm not having a great day. One of the reasons, while we're on that, I would say that, often people who are not feeling great stop going out is that dreadful question, how are you? And I really practice I never ask people, how are you? And I never answer the question. I don't ever ask that question and I don't ever answer it. If you're not in a great shape, it's a really off-putting question. And So people say to me, how are you? I go, oh, what a lovely day. Like, I just deflect. I don't answer the question, you know. And it's not anything other than, it's an impossible question to answer. You can say, good, fine. I'm in at the supermarket. You know, great, how are you? Let's just get the job done, you know, and it's an attempt to humanize and connect, absolutely. But if you're feeling depressed and people ask you how you are, and you just, you know, you can collapse into, I should be better, I shouldn't even be here, da 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 da. So I really invite you to experiment with not asking that question and not answering that question. You know, one of the reasons people won't pick up the phone, oh, no, how are you? What's been happening? What's going on? Oh, well, I've been sitting at home contemplating my PTSD and my depression, barely getting out of bed. How's your day been? You know, like, it's just impossible to answer. So I often coach people if they're going to go to a family event or something and they're not feeling great. Let's practice 3 things you are willing to talk about and that won't upset you. And just because someone asks you a question doesn't mean you have to answer it. Like, are you okay? Or how have you been? Or what's happening, right? You can say something else. And let's think of 3 things you can talk about. You can talk about your little, how are you? Oh, little dog Herbert jumped through a hoop the other day. You know, like, just blatantly change the subject. 99.9% of the time, nobody notices. You know, if you, we pick topics that are safe for you to talk about without getting triggered, and say, and none of the other questions you have to answer. Like, there is actually a skill of being able to go into a gathering of and potential connection and not answer all the questions and not have to explain yourself and not be, you know, having to say I'm fabulous and I'm okay and there's nothing wrong with me, right? How are you doing? Well, I, you know, had a great drive here this morning, or the traffic was good this morning, or I caught the number 37 bus. Honestly, people don't notice or really care. They don't know what to say. Mostly we're in a lot of people with very lack of skills in communication. One of my great peeves, right? So when we can learn to know what I am willing to communicate about, what I'm not willing to communicate about, I'm here to be in a group of people and, you know, do something, but I'm not open to sharing how I am, or I'm not really that interested in how you are at the moment, which is also fine, because if you're feeling depressed and lonely, you don't want to really hear someone else's story of being depressed and lonely. So it's okay to not be interested either, but to start up a conversation about the fine art of small talk, right? Which some people go, I hate small talk. Well, yeah, if it's a there is an art to it, but the benefit of small talk is standing at the gate talking to a neighbour about the trees, the garbage trucks, the whatever, can be connecting. Standing at the school gate talking about the uniforms, the school excursion, can be connecting. Making a comment as you walk past on something that you can see can be connecting. And often we lose that ability to discern. It's like, no, I don't want to share my life story. I don't want to hear anybody else's life story, but I would like some kind of connection. So I will go and have a chat, or, you know, be there, and I won't expect it to be anything other than a bit of a small talk connection, and come home, go and have a coffee and have that, and come home and be with myself, right? This art of us choosing when to connect, who to connect with, how to connect, and not allowing ourselves to be bullied by other people's need to reassure themselves that we're okay, or ask questions, or whatever, right? But the key to it all is that we're connected to ourselves enough to go, hey, I am lonely. I do need to get around some people. I need to walk in the sunshine, to come out here, to show up, to smile at the puppy dogs and the children, right? That's my starting point. I can do that today.
And maybe I will end up at a conference with lots of people changing the world, or maybe I won't. Or maybe I will end up in a class learning something in my local community, or maybe I won't. But I'm going to make an effort to take care of myself around connecting and really try to find, either online or in the community, where I might be able to show up and have that sense of I'm not the only one in the world. I'm not the only one in the world this has ever happened to. I'm not the only one in the world having a hard time. I do have something to offer. I can contribute. I can make a difference, even if it's just I've donated $5 to something, or I've put a sticker on something, or I've said yes to something. I can contribute. I can value myself in this world. So it's a big topic, and I guess I wanted to go from the huge to the minute and say all these different levels of connection are important, and it is the fourth C of what can make our life feel exponentially better, is to pay attention to where and how we're connected, and to look within ourselves as to whether we are shaming and blaming ourselves or others for not being connected. And some of us have had deep woundings by relationships, families, communities that have really let us down, have really treated us badly, have really not lived up to who they said they were. These things do happen and have happened to many of us. And the choice still is, am I going to let the rest of my life be determined by that? Or am I going to keep seeking my own connectedness and see where that will take me? If my first nature is love rather than fear, where might that bring me? Because when we've got that inner landscape of everything being fearful, you know, you see little babies, their first way of being isn't fear, it's, unless they're being very badly treated right at the beginning, but for mostly it's love. They're open. We just wanted to be here and to love everybody and be loved. And when life has gone on a journey where that's all gone horribly awry, taking steps back towards some sense of connectedness can be very, very important. So thank you to those of you who've said thank you and given me thumbs up and appreciate that. And someone's asked a question which will be answered by some of our staff tomorrow for sure. And I want to go back now, just finishing up together with my experience that kind of prompted today's topic, which was of being in a stadium with 20,000 people, all really wanting to connect on the theme of peace and making a difference in this life and in this world, and celebrating the human story. And there were some absolutely extraordinary stories of poverty and war and hardship, where people were lifted out of that poverty by a scholarship or a funding or someone coming with a different way to do things, or building a toilet in there. One speaker put 85 million toilets into India. Right, way to make a huge difference. So being lifted up by the actions and the efforts of others is a really valid human experience and a really important human experience. And you know, I'd say to you, don't watch the news. you don't really need to know all that, but go onto YouTube and look at these other, people uplifting the planet. What are the leaders doing today? What are the thought leaders doing today? Because there truly are millions of people doing quite extraordinary things, and new technologies doing quite extraordinary things in the world, enabling leaders and decision makers to make better decisions and all sorts of fun things. Excuse me. Oh. Excuse me. It was brave of me to go to fly on a plane and be with 20,000 people in this time of flu and communicable diseases. So I have certainly got the sniffles coming home. I've come home with the sniffles and a lot of inspiration about humanity's basic desire to love each other and help each other. And even in the face of war zones, even in the face of abuse and cruelty and neglect and famine, and that people just keep showing up with love and tell their stories and communicate about it. And so I want to leave you with that inspiration, and that if you don't know people in your life like that, find them. The young man, one of the speakers was the young man who's created the movement called Global Citizens, which, has raised, he's Australian, he's raised billions of dollars for for famine and hunger, and doing amazing things. It's a not-for-profit. It's this huge, biggest concert ever held in Central Park in New York. He's a wonderful young man, just making this extraordinary difference in the world. Check that out, Global Citizens. Like, get onto a positive stream of what people are doing who are so committed to being connected to the human family, and that it is possible for us all to make a difference in the quantum field of everything that is, which is just the science of how we're all connected. We are connected. We actually can't avoid being connected. And so no matter how big or how small our contribution is, we can wake up every day and say, I can make a difference. If I can be loving and kind to myself today, that makes a difference. If I can be loving and kind to someone else today, that makes a difference. If I can get online and do something, come here today and be with us, that makes a difference. So I really thank you for caring about yourself enough to show up here today. And our Quest Connect broadcast first Sunday of every month, and then we do Quest at Home on a Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Every week with the facilitators from Quest. And it is our pleasure to share with you why we love the work we do at Quest for Life, where we know we have a program that is a neuroplastic intervention, a psychosocial intervention, can really assist. We've seen it week after week, year after year, assist people to feel better in their connection with themselves, feel better in connection with others, and be in a supportive environment and learn more about what a connected, heartfelt life can be like. So thank you all very much. Wonderful to be here with you today, and I hope that this has been helpful, and that we'll see you at Quest sometime soon. Okay, everybody, have a beautiful, peaceful rest of your Sunday afternoon.